pledge allegiance. Flag,
United States of America,
to the
Republic,
republic which
stands
one
one
nation,
nation, under God,
visible,
indivisible,
liberty.
liberty,
Justice.
justice.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to public comment. This portion of the meeting is specifically set aside for comments from the public who are asked to limit their comments to 2 minutes. Any person interested in providing public comment should email publicmeetings@rockyhillct.gov. You will be provided with a link to attend the Zoom remote meeting and instructions on how you will participate. And I'm laughing because my dog is barking, so clearly he wants to participate. So we have one person in the queue, Miss Karishma Lawrence. And so Krishi, would you welcome? And we're going to give you 2 minutes.
Hi, I'm Karishma Patel Lawrence, and I'm a junior in high school and member of CCL. I've lived in Rocky Hill at 30 Fox Hill Drive my entire life. I wrote to you this summer about a cause that's incredibly important to me and many youth in town: climate change. However, unlike a lot of common misconceptions dictate, climate change isn't a problem for future generations. It's a crisis happening now, today. And to ensure that the next generation, my generation, has a future, we must act accordingly, now, today. This morning, I spoke with a friend and learned that over 3 million acres of land in California has been decimated by wildfires, a nearly 500% increase in the last 50 years. Rocky Hill, too, has seen and will see in the coming years the scary side effects of climate change on our economy, people, and town. Today, we're discussing our response to a storm, one of the incidents of severe weather that is on the climb with Earth's temperature. Beyond the scope of environmentalism, our rising climate is a crisis threatening humanity, one that scares me and many young people in Rocky Hill. It is for this reason that I earnestly ask you to issue a climate emergency resolution. This is a pragmatic, budget-friendly step that just makes sense. It gives us the opportunity to acknowledge climate change and take action, while still giving you the authority and freedom to act in complete accordance with your volitions and our budget. In the document I've passed along to you, you can see that there are several minimal cost tasks that we can commit to that work towards the sustainable future for our town and my generation. 3 other towns in Connecticut have issued climate emergency resolutions, and by stepping up and joining them, we encourage the state to do so as well, potentially bringing us state and hopefully eventually federal funding for climate action. A climate emergency resolution for Rocky Hill is a pursuit endorsed by several businesses in town, a state representative, over 100 people, and the vast majority of my generation. I've always been so honored to live in Rocky Hill, so proud of the leadership that our town has always displayed. Let's continue that leadership and foresight that makes our citizens so proud to live here by protecting our future with a climate emergency resolution. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Karishma. Moving on to appointments and resignations. Councillor Duff, do you have any?
We do not.
Okay. Councillor Sharma.
No appointments or resignations.
Okay. Moving on, approval of the minutes. Town Council meeting, August 17th, 2020. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the August 17th meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
Try to do it. I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none. Okay, so we'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Moving on to subcommittee reports, we'll begin with finance.
The Finance Subcommittee did meet last week, last Thursday. One of the items on the consent agenda this evening is the extension of the Verizon ground lease for a 25-year period. There was an email that went out late this afternoon noting that the 25 years was left off. It was just a 25 period. So thank you to Councilor Duff for noting that. Our FEMA expenses related to COVID have been submitted. The only expense item that so far has been disallowed was the ambulance laptops. However, those items, while under FEMA would get a 75% reimbursement, have been resubmitted to OPM. So we hope to get a 25% reimbursement on that portion. State aid to municipalities. We did receive our town aid in the amount of $173,105 in August as scheduled. This year we offered an extension on the time taxes are due. And just a reminder at this point, the taxes are due October 1st. So I know it's being posted around town on the electronic signs, but so far our tax revenue is off 8%, which is really not that bad considering that we did offer the extension of time to pay. Of note, though, is most of the mortgages have been paid. A few of the larger taxpayers have deferred, but the automobile taxes, motor vehicle taxes, are the ones that are slightly off. So hopefully those will catch up October 1st and they'll get paid before any penalties and interest are accrued. The last item that was added to the finance agenda and is on our agenda under new business is the police body cameras and vehicle cameras. And the reason this was added late to the agenda, there was an opportunity for a 50% matching grant from OPM. The cost of the body cameras would be piggybacking on a bid from the town of Wallingford. Our cost would be $175,000. We would have to receive an invoice, make a payment on that, and then make a submission to OPM for reimbursement. Now, this particular grant is a first come, first served grant. So the sooner we get our money in, the more likely we are to receive a reimbursement rate. So we'll be discussing that later in the agenda. And that concludes finance.
Thank you. Government operations.
Government Operations Subcommittee met on Tuesday, September 8th. Only a few items really of note were covered. The Rocky Hill High School stairs were substantially done other than landscaping at that point. John, if you have any updates since that was a couple weeks ago, feel free to chime in. But the stairs were pretty much done other than landscaping. The Stevens roof as well was pretty much completed. They did have some last handful of items to do that they're going to try to do outside school hours. Those were kind of the major things. Phil Sear gave us some updates on some other smaller projects throughout town. And our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, October 5th.
Thank you. Public safety.
Public safety met today at 5:30. We did have a packed agenda. We had 6 public want to speak. So public is taking advantage of the opportunities. And we had actually 3 spoke, 2 did not. We did have 3 videos shared, and we had 1 read-in for COVID. We had the traditional fire, ambulance, and police reports. Police chief then addressed the concerns on the call-ins, which had to do with car thefts, speeding and traffic violations, and Councilor Emanuel brought up the topic of vandalism in the parks, and that was addressed as well. Emergency management gave its first presentation as a departmental presentation, if you will, to public safety. A motion was made to add them to the regularly scheduled public safety meetings going forward, and that passed. And they will now be giving regularly scheduled meetings unless there's just nothing to report. But there's quite a bit. The report was good. Both fire and police reported an uptick in activity and calls, and the mayor did attend. And the next regularly scheduled public safety meeting will be again 5:30 p.m. on October 19th.
Thank you. Moving on to senior liaison.
The next senior liaison meeting is the 29th of September, Tuesday. However, in the meantime, via email, there's been a lot of discussion and planning on a survey to be included in the next Pinnacle paper that will be going out. And I believe the date of the Pinnacle is for the 5th of October is the release date. And the purpose of the survey is, as we have a new community senior center coming on, we're looking for new programming and activities that people would be interested in. We want to make sure we're completely inclusive of our community. So as part of the survey coming out, it'll be an add-on to what was done by Dr. Parasani, kind of an update that was done about 4 or 5 years ago. We're also, as part of this, Denise Sanderson in Human Services will also be accepting emails. If anybody doesn't want to fill out a survey and would just like to email her suggestions. And it's suggestions for activities as well as individuals that think that have a specialty or expertise in a particular area that may like to lead a program as well. Denise's email is dsanderson, SANDERSON @RockyHillCT.gov. And that's the senior liaison report.
Thank you. Moving on to land acquisition and farmland preservation. Do you guys have a report?
Open Space and Farmland Preservation did meet at 6:15 tonight, and we were able to get a full presentation on the soil conservation plan for the town. We were able to get an update on the leases, 2 of which are signed, and the third one is just pending. It will be signed, our understanding, and it should happen any day now. So all 3 farmers will be in. And we heard a presentation on the Streska Parcel B, which is the remaining cleanup zone. And the deadline for that is September 24th. Since that will be falling before our next meeting, we will be given an update by Ray Carpentino as to what the lawyers on both sides agreed upon on September 24th as far as the final exit and cleanup of the entire site out of Parcel B. We also heard that the STEEP grant is in, and that notification should happen on or about October 1st, and we will get an interim update as well on that, since that is midway before our next meeting. So we'll get an update on that. The next regularly scheduled farmland meeting is October 19th at 6:15.
Ed, I just wanted to make a clarification there. September 24th, I believe, is the date that they have to demonstrate substantial progress on the cleanup, and then the final cleanup would be the anniversary of the agreement, which would be January 28th. So we don't want folks to think that they're going to drive by and have it all clean, middle of this week.
Yes, with one change that I would add, it's they're all hinging on the definition of substantial progress.
Yep.
Also, add the letter is giving them 21 days notice that we're seeking substantial progress in the cleanup. If they don't have substantial cleanup, then we can address how we're going to move forward after the 21 notice.
We look forward to that report, John.
Okay, thank you. The liaison to the state rep and senator.
No report.
School liaison.
Yes, Madam Mayor, as you're aware, we just concluded the first 2 weeks of the 2021 school year last Friday. And currently the Rocky Hill schools are moving forward with the plan to do in-person Monday through Friday learning with a remote option. Currently, there are 63% of the families that are attending in person and 37% that are remote at this time. However, in case of emergency, emerging COVID threat in the future, BOE would operate the schools under a hybrid model that is proposed by them, designed to reduce the in-person attendance. And with a 2-week rotating cohort in-person and remote. So, at the beginning of the school year, as you can imagine, there are a lot of families which are not in sync with this plan. Obviously, it's a big town and there are a lot of different opinions. So the BOE sent out a survey on this issue of hybrid schooling if the need arises. The results of that survey are still awaited and not been made public, but BOE wanted to get that input from the public. So hence the survey, right? And last week, BOE approved the school district's participation in a federal school meals program in which children 18 or younger who are residents of Rocky Hill and enrollment in the schools is not a requirement here, are able to get free meals, and they're eligible for that. So through the end of the year, which is good news for families who need that kind of economic assistance. And finally, for people at home, I would like to share some news they can use. So John Murphy, if you can put up that slide. And if you are a parent of a child who is learning remotely at this time, and you have any tech support needs, this is the Rocky Hill school site, rockyhillps.com/remote. You can go there and fill out a form, which is a Google form, and get some help if you need some help. And in the same vein, if you are concerned about anything, you have any comments to share with Brian Dillon, who is the chairman of the Board of Ed, or the superintendent of schools, Mr. Zito, then you can use this remote learning comments box here, which will take you to slide 2, which is a Google form again, which will look like this. So you can fill up this form and get in touch with the chairman of the board or with the superintendent of schools if you need any help or you have any concerns. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Well, thank goodness there's no more subcommittee reports because Pankaj has just raised the bar. So you guys are going to have to do now presentations to meet with that guy. Thank you. We'll move to the consent agenda. We have one item for approval, the First Amendment to the land lease at Fire Station number 2. Do we have a motion to approve that? Anybody?
And I'll make a motion to approve the amendment to the land lease at Fire Station number 2.
Okay, and a second?
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, before we move forward, I noticed that we did not add another item under new business. So I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda for add item D, discussion and possible action for police body cameras and car cameras. I thought that was already updated. I apologize.
Okay.
Second.
All right, is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Alan. Moving on to old business, one item again, discussion, possible action of the community/senior center.
Thank you. The update I got from Colliers today is that Eversource finally came back to finish up moving the transformer from its current location to a new location, and that transformer is primarily used to power the library, and that was all completed on Friday. Last week, they poured a slab for the gazebo to be moved out of its current location on the parking lot onto a slab, which is adjacent to the transformer and between the transformer and the fire museum. Last week, the contractor completed sequence 1 of its installation of the steel. They're starting sequence 2 this week. We received the delivery this morning, and they anticipate having that completed by the end of this week. And then sequence 3 of the steel erection will begin next week. A tentative date for the sign beam ceremony is Friday, October 16th. It's right now. They're currently working on the underslab utilities, and that should be completed by Friday of this week. And then the final perimeter footings, now that the transformer's been moved, they anticipate being poured sometime this week, with the foundations walls following that. And last, the contractor is preparing to work on the gym, as it's probably going to get turned over from the town in the beginning of October. And that's the status of the community center as of today.
Does anyone have any questions of John?
I had a question that kind of goes along with Councilor Greenspan's earlier report, where we're doing a survey to follow up through the Pinnacle for the needs from some of the existing users of the senior center. Given that it's the community senior center, are we thinking about programming needs for the broader population? Is that something Craig is doing from Parks and Rec, or do we know if we're going to do any surveys or any activities around programming that might be intergenerational programming that might take place?
I think the survey that's going out in a couple weeks does include intergenerational questions and so on.
If I could, go ahead, John.
No, I was just going to say, I think Craig is focused on, the Parks and Rec related items earlier. And, we're focusing this survey on some of the senior activities that might be interested in, people might be interested in having. And I do think it does touch on it slightly, not too deeply.
Yeah, I think it might just be something we want to explore as we get this new space. I mean, it's a different, there's different populations, different segments of folks that we want to hit. I mean, there's a difference between getting the newsletter and filling out a paper survey versus other people who might use email, or I know Craig's had a lot of success with Facebook. So I don't know what the plan is. It's probably going to be a team effort in terms of doing programming with the broader community, but something that we might want to take a look at, because we want to make sure that once we're ready to open the doors and let folks in, we do have a good offering for everybody too.
Yeah, I mean, this particular survey came out of the Senior Liaison Committee, so it's geared towards seniors, recognizing that seniors run from 55 up to 100. So there's not a lot of programming for younger and younger thinking seniors at this point. So this is to get knowledge, but there is also the intergenerational portion. There are some options, and we're seeking really for people to give us other ideas as well. But I think it's, I've been thinking that Craig is probably working on his level, but probably as the council, we may want to check with him as well, because we want obviously programming for everyone.
Yeah, so if I can just chime in, I finally got reconnected with the commissioner on women, children, and seniors last week. So as you know, pre-COVID, he was going to come in and make a presentation about intergenerational programming. And then we went into lockdown and we started construction. So he's going to join us via Zoom, and most likely, well, definitely that would be in November at our November meeting. So I just really confirmed that. I was going to go over that in my mayor's report, but this is what he does for a living. He's totally focused on the whole intergenerational community dialogue, and specifically programming, which is very big now, because like you said, Mimi, seniors are young now, 55 and older. So, we want to see what all the options are. So it's probably a good time with the survey and, having some expert who we can pick his mind and see what might work.
And if I can, just to answer Councilor Duff's question a little bit, at our last senior liaison meeting, which seems so long ago, so it was in the end of August, there was a town department head meeting where Missy and Denise were meeting with Craig and Mary at the library, because their programs all overlap, both for the whole community. So they are working together to try to make sure that we're including all age groups and demographics.
Great. Good to hear.
Okay. Moving on to new business. A, discussion appointments capital improvement program subcommittee.
Lisa, you want me to do this one or
Do you want me to do it? Oh,
you want to announce the appointments and to make
Yeah.
official where?
Yeah, so as you know that we've been discussing forming this subcommittee, but there are a formality where we need to put it through the council to make those appointments before we can actually have our first meeting. So we put that on the agenda. And what I would like to do is make some appointments of Chris Duff and Alan Greenspan. John Mayer would serve as our staff advisor. I would join as a de facto member, meaning I can't vote, but I can still participate. And then we would have Brian Dillon, who is the chairperson of Board of Ed, as well as Chuck Zettergren, who is assistant superintendent, as well as finance director at the Board of Education, which is really a nice collaboration of the town side and the Board of Education side so that we can start on a quarterly basis looking at capital improvement plans now and into the future. So John, I don't know if you want to add to that.
I think you're planning on a meeting in the end of October.
Yes, it would be it's always the next opening on our calendars for meetings is the fourth Tuesday. So it would be the fourth Tuesday of every fourth month. And the first kickoff meeting would be October 27th. And I believe we said, did we say 6? That I'll check on, but I'll check on the timing. Okay. Moving on to presentations, we have Ms. McGee here for Community Relations and Accessibility Commission discussion. Take it away.
Good evening, everyone. I am going to share my screen. We are going to speak very briefly about the Commission on Community Relations and Accessibility. And let's make sure I can share my screen. Can you see the screen?
I don't see your screen now.
You don't?
Not yet.
Let's see. I might have to ask John Murphy to jump in and make sure I'm doing this correctly.
Dana, I'll share it on my end. Just let me know when to advance the slide.
Okay, great. We should be on the cover page right now, presentation to Town Council. This presentation responds to our town leaders' interest in establishing a commission on community relations and accessibility. More specifically, the presentation is a very simple summary of the procedure for introducing and passing the ordinance upon which the commission would be based. If we can go on to slide number 2, John. The Community Relations and Accessibility Commission would be based on an ordinance. And once again, the ordinance, there will be a specific procedure for introducing and passing an ordinance. I'm going to leave it to Mayor Marotta and Councilor Duff to discuss the vision and the purpose and the charge behind the commission, but the commission would have its authority based on this ordinance. The town charter sets forth the specific procedure for developing an ordinance. And very simply, to begin, on slide number 2, a town councilor must, of course, introduce a proposed ordinance. Secondly, the proposed ordinance must be filed with the town clerk. The ordinance should ideally set forth the commission's purpose, the structure, including membership and charge, and hopefully in drafting the ordinance, our town councilors would consult with our town attorney to make sure that we're using best practices in developing an ordinance. Once the proposed ordinance is filed with the town clerk will ensure that a copy of the proposed ordinance is retained in the town clerk's office. This is to ensure that the public has access to the ordinance for inspection. Also, to make sure that there's wide dissemination of the proposed ordinance to the public, the ordinance would be posted on the town bulletin board and also distributed to each town councilor and the town manager. John can go on to the next slide. Again, following along with what the town charter would require in section 406 specifically, the town council would have to hold a public hearing, providing at least 5 days notice prior to the hearing, 5 days notice of the public hearing. The concept is to make sure that the public has plenty of opportunity to comment on the proposed ordinance. The notice should be published in a newspaper with wide circulation in town, also published on the town's website and on the town's bulletin board. Following the public hearing, the town council would make changes that it deemed necessary and advisable before passing the ordinance. Next slide. Notice of the passage of the ordinance, including any changes made to the ordinance, would be published at least once in a newspaper, again, having wide circulation in town. The ordinance would become effective 30 days following the above notice, but keep in mind that if a petition for referendum is filed with the town clerk within the time specified in another section of the charter, that being section 410, the ordinance would not become effective until we followed through with the provisions of section 410 of the town charter. The adopted ordinance would be filed with the town clerk and be kept as a public record. Thank you, John. That's the end for that. So again, a very simple overview. If you not tell from that, the importance of most of those sections of the town charter, it's very important that we invite public comment to give the public plenty of opportunity to get an idea of what it is we are proposing and give them a chance to comment on that. The town charter's focus very much is on allowing for public comment. So very simple procedure, very much outlined in the town charter.
Thank you, Dana. So I'm just going to make a couple of comments, and then Chris has been working with Dana and I a little bit to sort of sift through the procedure and the background to this commission. As some of you may know, there was a commission on human relations a long time ago. And so Ms. McGee was kind enough to go through that history, to go through the minutes, and sort of see what their charge and mission was. And it seemed like it was probably a bit more narrow in scope than we would like this commission to be, especially in this day and age. A lot has changed. So in a very fundamental level, it really is about creating a venue where everyone in town can feel welcome, can feel accepted, can feel respected, to give their opinions and sort of shape things that are happening here in Rocky Hill, because we want every resident to feel welcome. And that's really what the basic premise is for purposes of this commission. It is in essence a community partnership, and we are very hopeful that we will be able to explore issues of diversity. But under that big umbrella of diversity, we also want to be cognizant of the fact that there are always going to be issues of equity and equality and inclusion that we want to be addressing. But necessarily we need to hear from the residents to determine what those issues are. So really, it is something that I want everyone to understand, that it's through the help of your input, through public hearing and through participation that we will formally define the charge and the mission of this commission, that we will task the commission pursuant to what the residents are looking for. And that really is a key component to beginning this whole process. The purpose of it being introduced tonight really is just to get the council's approval to move forward with this. And then, as Ms. McGee indicated, there are a number of formalities that we have to go through before it can actually come to the council for passage. So we have a bunch of hoops to go through, but this is really just giving us the authority to move forward. And so before I turn it over to you, Chris, I just want to kind of point out two things. I've told you what the commission is, basically what it's premised upon, what its intent is. But I want to tell you very briefly what the commission is not. It's really not meant to be a venue for taking on individual complaints. Now, I don't mean to imply that we're not going to have some tough discussions. We probably will have some tough discussions. But we're also need to be cognizant of the fact that this is a body of residents who want to bring people together. And that's what we're looking to do rather than to divide them. And then finally, it is not a police civilian review board. That's really a separate entity in and of itself. But with respect to complaints and review of police departments or any other departments, I want to assure you that we have a policy in place and we have a number of procedures by which the town accepts complaints. So we don't really need another venue for that purpose, but we do need a venue where we can ensure that everyone is feeling welcome and heard. So Chris, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure, thanks. And I think that's a really good starting point. The community has come together in a number of times, and unfortunately in recent years, often the response to a tragedy, and we see these moments where everybody will pull together at a vigil or at a vigil or a gathering, and show solidarity between the things that we hold in common. I think a lot of the challenge, though, is that, what do you do when it's not a tragedy? How do we not lose that spirit? How can we only get to that place when it is, a bad time? And, not all times are bad. So how do we build that cultural exchange and strengthen the ties of our community so that when we do have to have those difficult conversations, people are there to listen, be heard, and then make changes that are necessary. And, no one's perfect. So it's not the idea of we're going to tell people, yell at one group or tell them that they have to change, but really to give people a forum and come up with programs to help to make it so when those conversations happen, people are hearing it from their neighbor or their partner and not someone who's different, from them. And the mayor mentioned, the council and the ordinance will be, with the feedback of the public, will be establishing the charge and the mission. But it's really the participation of the public that will make this a success or not. It's going to be the participation of the public that will, make up some of the committee members, or some of the members of the committee itself, and also determine what projects that will be worked on. That could be social programming. It could be, the town has a lot of resources available. It could be things like leveraging, the different town facilities or the town's audiovisual resources to put together little mini programs or things like that. There's a lot of different things we could do to help encourage greater cross-cultural and cross-age exchange. And we're going to need the public to actually do that and to bring those ideas. It's not going to be something, or at least our intention is not something that the council will be, micromanaging. So I think we're looking forward to the to hearing from folks, the public. That means we need people to get the word out. We need people to participate, and then we need to help. We need their ideas for how we can make our community, a better and more supportive place for everybody who lives here. So that's really the goal of it. as Dana and the mayor also mentioned, we do have pre-existing forums when there are things like, complaints or concerns that address specific situations. And the idea here is not to, overlap with what's already on the books. So we're trying to do something new and hopefully something that's very lasting. So I think we look forward to hearing everybody's ideas. And then, over the coming months, as we put this into action.
Thank you, Chris. So, John Mayer, procedurally, do we need to make a motion to move this forward?
Well,
Or should we just continue moving forward?
I think as of right now, you can just continue moving it forward. Are you going to formalize a committee?
No,
to
not,
address
no, no,
this?
it's still
But
preliminary.
as right now, it's, I would just say, the idea is being presented.
Yeah.
And it's available to the public.
Thank you. Okay,
So is someone working on a draft of the ordinance that would then go to the council for review, and then we would set a public hearing the night the ordinance is going to be discussed? Is that how it's going to work?
Yes.
Is that any type of ordinance? Dana?
Any type of ordinance. Because the ordinance has to be introduced by a town councilor, while staff can, like myself, we can start working on drafts. At the end of the day, it has to be presented through a town councilor to the rest of the town council.
But this is different than the ordinances that we've discussed in subcommittees like public safety in prior years. This is
Yeah,
different.
I would tend to think there isn't an ordinance for this committee per se, but if the committee does develop an ordinance, then it would follow Dana's procedure. But I don't think you need an ordinance to form this committee.
Right. I just want to make sure that there's, what goes on in like public safety, for example, when there's ordinances or discussions that need public hearings, that we're not adding additional layers, because all of these things should be vetted through subcommittees prior to coming to the council. Okay, thanks.
unmute. Thank you so much, Dana.
Thank you.
Okay.
If someone has ideas, or someone who's watching this, and I don't know, hopefully there are people who are watching this and getting excited, who should they contact?
Chris, for now, they could contact either you or I, understanding that, procedurally, we are waiting to get a draft ordinance back. And then at that time, there will be public input. So they really, if they want to reach out, they can. But essentially, if they want to wait until public input and then reach out that way, and then they can express an interest in joining or becoming a member, or how they can help it forward. Okay, wonderful. So moving on. Oh, update on brush pickup.
Thank you. I'm not muted. Yes, this summer we had an early round of brush pickup due to the hurricane that came through around August 4th. And initially, after the storm hit, we did some various pickups, as well as concerns about hanging branches in the trees. As the wording goes, they're called widow makers and so on. So the first thing after the storm hit and our initial cleanups to make sure the roads were accessible, we did the hanging branches. And then we gave the residents a little more than a week and a half to get their brush out to the curbside. And then starting on August 18th, the highway department began picking up that brush. Now, granted, we did have scheduled many other things going on for the highway department, primarily road improvements and projects, as well as catch basin work. So the pickup for the week of the 18th and the 25th was done Monday through Thursday, primarily on overtime to try to get caught on it. We have some mechanical issues where the claw that is used to pick up the brush and put it into the truck needed to be repaired, and that was offline for a week or so. But we did some overtime on Saturday, September 12th, as well as the week of September 14th through the 17th. And as of today, we should be pretty much completed our rounds of picking up the storm debris. Also starting this week is the regular fall brush pickup. It should run from the 21st to the 25th. That is where we would go around and pick up branches that should be no longer than 8 inches round. Branches shall be no longer than 8 feet long. Brush should be stacked, cut or butt ends facing the street, and brush must be stacked neatly in the same direction, not crisscross. Town reserves the right picking what it deems qualifies to be picked. If they do not pick anything, there will be something left on, like a door knocker or a door on the door explaining why it wasn't picked up. We won't accept stumps, no logs over 8 inches round, no whole tree removals, no construction debris, metal or stone, and please do not stack near light pole wires, electrical boxes, fire hydrants, mailboxes. This pickup service is for residential homeowners only and not for commercial properties, apartments, or condo complexes. So generally they start down by the riverside of the town and work their way across the town. And again, it would be for this week in the past, but due to the storm and so on, they'll probably make an additional pass to try to, or it may take longer to do the brush pickup. I provide you with some pictures in an email showing the pile that currently is at the sand pits right now. And as of today, it's 169 feet in length, 187 feet wide, and 17 feet high. And as of right now, the town's looking for a company that could come in and do some grinding on this. We go through one of the companies that are on the state bid, and we're hoping that a high percentage of this expense that we incurred would be reimbursed through FEMA. So, as I said, normal brush pickup for the fall started today.
Okay, thank you.
Lisa, can I ask a couple of questions on it?
Yeah, sure.
John, I know we had a storm that hit and we had some severe damage. We had power outages. And I received several emails and complaints from people about the amount of time it took for the brush to get picked up, including people that were taking brush to Dividend, where they were told on the town website that they could dump it and then were turned away. And they called town staff to say the website was wrong and they didn't have time to update it. So I felt it took a long time to get the cleanup done. I felt that the lack of communication of what was going on and there were delays only made the number of responses from residents a little bit worse.
Well, I think what we did before we started doing the pickup that week before, we were allowing those homeowners that did have contractors that came in and did the cleanup, the opportunity to bring that debris down to the sand pits that week before we started picking it up. The delay in picking up everybody is a combination of could have been the abundance of the pickup that was needed to be done that slowed it down a bit, as well as the highway department being split between doing road projects because we were having some paving being done. They need to replace a number of catch basins. So it was probably delayed a bit. And again, we try to do it from a cost standpoint where we maybe had one crew working overtime Monday through alternating between Monday through Thursday. So we'll try to improve our communications in the future. Hopefully we won't have another storm like this come through, but we'll work on updating the website promptly going forward.
Yeah, and just the other piece, knowing that some of these funds would have been, or we were still hoping will be reimbursed by FEMA. The other option is if we have issues in town with equipment or other projects, is going outside and bringing in a contractor, as I know other towns did, to expedite the pickup, even if it's a combination of the two. It's just those decisions didn't seem to be communicated to anybody of what was happening. And hopefully we don't have another storm, but if we do, the communication will improve and maybe some of those decisions could be looked at.
Okay.
Question, John. Is this material that's accumulated down at the sand pits, is that going to become part of, is that what the town makes the mulch and the wood chip piles out of that are the free taking for the community? Are those piles going to be they're down to next to nothing at this point?
I think it's a combination because of the abundance of it. Sometimes the grinding company will take some of that stuff away, but due to the amount probably in the state, they may not. But we're probably going to look at providing it as part of the mulch or even part of a new pile for wood chips due to the high volume.
Okay, any other questions of John about brush pickup? Okay. Alrighty, let's move on to the mayor's report.
The item we added, the police body.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Alan. You're right. Yes, let's move on to that. So I didn't write it down, but it is essentially the discussion and possible action regarding the police cameras and the opportunity to get 50% reimbursement.
Right, along with those nice pictures of the pile of brush we have down at the sand pits, should have been attached a resolution as well as the invoice supporting the cost of the cameras, in which just bring it to the council's attention of this opportunity that came up last week that was discussed at the finance committee, and the finance committee agreed to move on to the town council. The resolution sort of spells things out. The $175,000 would be coming from the money that the council budgeted in the prior budget of the non-reoccurring to transfer into the general fund for revenue to help balance the 2019-20 budget. Due to the situation of surpluses on the expense side and additional revenues, we didn't need to use that money. So it was remained in the non-reoccurring account. So that's where the 175,000 is coming from. Everyone got the resolution, copy of the resolution?
Yeah, it was in our packets.
And then,
Go ahead, Chris.
sure, just John, as things we discussed in finance, seems like it's more or less like a turnkey solution. It's the cameras for the body cams, the cars, also servers and software. It's like a whole all-inclusive package, and there's 20 units, which takes care of the patrol division. Is that correct?
Right, patrol and their vehicles. And again, the grant is the current grant that's available through OPM, which allows for 50% reimbursement. Once this money is used up, then if they come out with another grant program, the talk is that it would only be a 20% reimbursement from the state.
And John, along the lines of the this program, I know we're piggybacking a bid from, I believe it was Wallingford, but the police command staff has been involved in reviewing the equipment and making sure that this meets their needs, both internally as well as the police accountability bill that was recently passed.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so are we gonna have a motion to?
Alan, you're gonna.
I have one question before a motion.
Yep.
John, I was just curious, how come this didn't come up before public safety first to get Mike's input?
Well, it was brought up during other, but again, it's one of those, it's more of a timing issue in which the police were doing research and finding out all this information, and it sort of all came together last week. So we had a finance committee on Thursday that we added it to that agenda and discussed it at that point. And then we did talk very briefly about it at public safety this evening with many other topics for the night.
If this isn't moved forward, what's the risk? What's the time for that grant?
The grant has so many hundreds of thousands of dollars left. I don't know whether it's 400,000 or 500,000, and other towns are applying for it and dwindling it down. So it's more one that if you show that you have expended the funds and there's still money left in the grant, you get 50% of your cost reimbursed. So it's the timing of how much longer that pot of money in this grant would remain.
Okay. And you haven't heard of any possible risk that this portion of that bill, that new accountability bill, could be reversed? So if this is brought up.
I think because there's so many items in that bill, this one is lower on the to fight for compared to some of the other topics that the police chiefs and those groups are interested in addressing. This is a high percent, I don't know what the percentage is, but other towns do have these cameras in there, and it sounds like something that would most likely stick in the long run.
Okay, thanks.
Just building on Councilor Manuel's line of questioning. I don't know whether Alan, it's you or John Mayer. So Police Chief Custer wants the body cams and car cams, right? Just ask the simplest question. He would like them. He didn't just study the purchase list.
I think
I think it's more that he realizes that they have to be installed by a certain date based on that bill, which I believe is, even though it's a ways off, 2022. And again, this is a company that I believe many towns use for the cameras for the body and body cams and the car cams. So we're taking advantage of perhaps getting 20 at 50% discount.
I just wanted to know that we touched base with the police chief himself. Okay, yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
I'm good.
I think Councilor Manuel, based on what I've seen, and I can't speak to what the legislation will do certainly, but legislators will do. But I think the pushback on the body cams, if any, is really from municipalities with respect to how will this affect my budget. It's just another one of those unfunded mandates that we've heard about. And I don't necessarily know if law enforcement that is opposed to it. Just want to put that up.
Well, I mean, if he's opposed to it for some reason, and I know there's departments that are opposed to it, if the reasons are valid, other than budgetary reasons, then from my standpoint, I think we should stick by him. That was my primary concern, that we're not jumping the gun just because of this grant, when if 6 months down the road, the legislature does say it's up to the municipalities, we're taking this out of the state mandate, and the chief comes back and says, we've studied this, we don't feel it's appropriate for our department at the time, I just think that should be out there. But if we're under the time frame of the grant and he's endorsing this, then I just wish there would have been a lengthy, detailed discussion during public safety. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think ideally it would have been gone through public safety. It does sound like the chief and also other members of the police department were involved in the vetting process for this. I think the challenge is that, or perhaps the opportunity, is that our police department, they go above and beyond. They have gone out of their way to get CLIA certified. It seems like they're really trying to follow best practice. And if you're following best practice, then this potentially could save the town money if it prevents, a settlement. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that our police department would do differently than other departments in the country. But, we look at the Breonna Taylor lawsuit, just got settled for $12 million. If the body cams back up our folks following the right procedures and protocols, it could potentially, defang a potential suit in the future, as long as our guys are acting appropriately, which I think, we expect them to do from our experience with the chief and his team. So, potentially there's a cost savings there, even though we're, upfront have to shell out some money to acquire the equipment. Hopefully we won't have any serious incidents like that, but if it does and we're following the right procedure, it could protect, our officers in the field.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to authorize the purchase of body and car cameras for the police department, as well as applying for the State of Connecticut OPM grant. The amount authorized would be $175,100.
I second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? No, none. Negative, thank you. Okay, moving on to the mayor's report. I just want to give everyone a brief COVID-19 update. I spoke with our Central Health District today, Director Charles Brown, to try to get a real-time update. So as of the 17th, which was actually last Thursday, the total number of cases since we got into this pandemic is 472 here in Rocky Hill and 94 deaths. And we have to remain cognizant that while, there may be other towns of similar size, our death rate is probably and is higher than comparable towns because we have a pretty high concentration of skilled nursing facilities where folks are in close proximity to each other. And unfortunately, those were the conditions under which we saw a lot of loss of life. And again, we extend our condolences to those families and for those who continue to have family members who suffer with COVID virus. The transmission rate was at its lowest, interestingly enough, on May 14th. It was at 0.73, so 0.73. It is now at 1.17, and this isn't Rocky Hill, this is the entire state. And so basically what that is telling us is as we transitioned into phase 2, we started to see a little bit of an increase in the number of folks who are testing positive, which is why it's always important that you want to keep your mask on and you want to keep your distance of 6 feet whenever that's possible, because all of those individual acts have a huge benefit on our community and the greater good, and it's certainly how we were able to flatten that curve. So I want to thank all of you for your cooperation in that respect, because it's clearly had an impact, but we want to make sure that we don't become complacent as we move forward, particularly into flu season, that we remain cognizant of the fact that our personal mitigation strategies are incredibly important. And then speaking of individual acts, so locking our car doors is incredibly important to deterring vehicle break-ins. For those of you who didn't have an opportunity to catch tonight's public safety meeting, I would encourage you to watch the video. You can go on the town's website to do that. We had some folks from the community come out, and we also had a great report from our police department. So I would encourage you to watch that so that you have an understanding, as I'm sure you all do at this point, that this is not an issue that's unique to Rocky Hill. And there are things that we can do as individuals, as simple as locking our car doors and sharing that message with everyone, calling your family and friends at night and just saying, hey, did you lock your car doors? That will go a long way. It doesn't seem, maybe it doesn't seem to some that it's effective, but it absolutely is effective. It's a national campaign. We know that law enforcement encourages that. And as the chief had spoke about, we have laws in place in Connecticut that make it difficult to go after these people who perpetuate property crime. And so until we can get a handle on that, we really have to take it upon ourselves to do what we can. And that simply is locking our car doors. Now, some of you have been interested in creating community watches, and some of you have been very successful in doing so. And there are a few who have questions about it. So I want to give you just some very quick tips about starting a community watch. And I want to give you 2 email addresses if you have questions. So basically the neighborhood watch is something that you do with your neighbors. It's a simple yet effective tool. And you want to start by just identifying 1 or 2 people on your street who want to take the lead. And then you meet with all of your neighbors and you want to make sure that they're committed to having a watch program with you. And then it's a matter of sharing your personal information. Do you want to communicate as a group via text, via email, via phone calls? What works best for the group under those circumstances? And then what do you want to do? Do you want to have a plan where you're reminding people to lock their doors? You want to make sure that you have an understanding that if you see someone suspicious on your property, that you call 911. Don't hesitate to do that. If you see someone, and the idea of the neighborhood watch is really, sometimes you have neighbors who you don't really know that well, or you may not say to them, hey, I'm going to be away for the weekend. Keep an eye out on my property. Now is the time to really get to know your neighbors, right? And really share information and try to get there and have each other's back. Take videos. You can participate in purchasing the Ring app. And our police department uses that Ring app to track what's going on. So they take, if you're not familiar with the Ring app, it will actually take a video of someone when they're up in your front door or in your property. And that goes a long way. Your community watch group may actually have a point person who's going to take videos or take photos. But the key is you have to remember that you never want to actually confront a stranger, right? So if you have somebody on your property, if you see someone on your neighbor's property, never ever approach them. We have law enforcement to do that. Pick up the phone, call 911, stay in your house, take as much photos and videos as you can, but never approach someone because you don't know how that's going to escalate. It could be dangerous. There are other things that you can do. You can decide as a community on your street, maybe you want to purchase decals that you put on your windows or you put on your vehicles or you put on your mailboxes just to alert these folks that, hey, we have eyes on you and we don't want you here. Move on. And then again, just reminding each other. So if you want to start a community watch or a neighborhood watch, you can reach out to, I'm going to call him Ed, but Deputy Mayor Sharma, because through public safety, and I'm sure any of the commissioners or any of the counselors on public safety would be willing to go over some basic tips with you and help point you in the right direction. We can hook you up with other residents who have started a watch so you can see how it's working for them. So our email addresses are online. Feel free to reach out to us anytime about that. Two more quick things. You know that we're always talking about garbage and recycling because we're kind of in crisis mode with respect to that. So this small group that that has been meeting with Commissioner Dykes since pre-COVID to talk about our concerns with MIRA has now actually been turned into a Connecticut coalition of many, many towns. And it's very exciting because we are going to start with the state of Connecticut exploring options for municipalities. And we will be breaking into separate groups organized by topic. And DEEP specifically is going to help us with resources, with permitting, and with procurement. And I have been putting a bug in their ear to also help us with funding so that, you know, recycling and garbage and municipal waste management is a very expensive and complicated concept. And it's very difficult to expect a town like Rocky Hill to just shift gears and start another program without sort of having some type of incentive there, or pilot program and grant opportunities. So I have both, let's see, Councilor Duff and Councilor Levine, who have graciously agreed to be part of the working group with myself and Deep. And so as those things start to get formed, we will come to you with some of the possible solutions. And once menus are created with options for municipalities, we will present that to you through hopefully public workshops. And then we can decide together what's going to work best for Rocky Hill moving forward, and then present that information to state lawmakers in January. So stay tuned for that. And then I've already told you about the Community Senior Center, the intergenerational presentation with the commissioner. So I think that's it. Just checking. Yep, that's it. So now we'll go to the town manager's report.
An update on fall paving of the roads. The town has completed its micro surfacing of rehabilitating roads. So the roads that they micro surfed this fall was Bucks Crossing, Christopher Court, Hunter's Ridge, Murphy Drive, Piera Drive, Rhodes Road, Tedwin Farms Road, West Ridge Drive, Barnyard Road, Farms Village Road, Forest Street, Highview Drive, Mountain Drive, Nessa Way, Pearl Lane, and Rachel Drive, for a total of almost 4 miles of roads that were microsurfaced, excuse me. Starting this week, we're going to be working on Bailey Road, Bayberry Lane, Berkshire Road, Courtney Drive, Elmridge Drive, Litchfield Place, Orchard Street, and Wright Road. So that will be about a total of a little less than 3 miles of roads. So, and also earlier this year, we did do Dividend Road through a LoSAP grant, which was 1.1 miles. So according to Steve Sopelak, we've done this fall, or this year, 10.69 miles of road repair. Okay, you hear on the news and so on, all this money that's available from the state that they got from the federal government and so on. The only question is, how do towns get that money? Fortunately, we've received a few $1,000s from various state agencies. That just, the Secretary of State, with helps to help out on the costs associated with the November election, has sent us 2 wire transfers into our bank account, totaling $6,800. Now, the postage and the costs associated with the application for these absentee ballots are being paid by the state, I believe, through a federal grant. Those people that deem to want an absentee ballot mailed to them, they'll return it to the town, and our town clerk's office will be mailing out the ballot to town residents. So the money that Secretary of State sent helps the town offset some of the costs, postage, et cetera, associated with mailing those ballots out, as well as processing it and so on.
John?
Here.
The request comes with a postage paid envelope, but I think when you get the application, you've got to put postage on it to return your vote.
Or you can drop it off here at the town hall.
If you're out of state, yeah.
Yeah. Or we got the mailbox out here, the ballot box outside that can be dropped off as well. And then the state labor department, we were told that our unemployment cost would be 50% reimbursed. And when we received our latest invoice from the labor department, we did see credits posted to our account since March through July, totaling $16,800. So we did get some money from the state. Granted, it wasn't a lot of money, but it helps offset some of the costs will be occurring. Planning and zoning will be meeting this Wednesday, and they'll be going into executive session to discuss a proposed settlement associated with that hotel group that wanted to build up by I-91 area that filed a lawsuit. So again, the town attorney will be meeting with the P&Z group in executive session to discuss the proposed settlement. Just an FYI that there's a large class action lawsuit being filed associated with the disabled under federal law being denied a proper education due to the school closings. And pretty much every Board of Ed in Connecticut is a party to this lawsuit. But we did send it, and Kerma is overseeing the lawsuit on our behalf. They hired a law firm to monitor the case on behalf of all the Kerma clients. And then the last farmers market of the year will be September 30th. Excuse me, starting at 3, running till 6. So that's next Wednesday, the 30th. And starting in October, we're going to go back again to meetings on the 1st and 3rd Mondays of the month. And that's it.
Question for the town manager? John, I was wondering if you could give us an update on that phone system that crashed.
Oh, okay. Yes. Let's see. Yes, let's see. It was a result of an intermittently failing network switch, and causing the addresses being pointed to the wrong network device. They had turned off that device, the bypassing device, as of right now, and it's being replaced by the vendor. And at no time were any of the 911 calls interrupted. So it's had something to do with a network switch. That.
Is there a backup being considered to that as well? I know I couldn't reach you. I know traditional call into the police dispatch couldn't be reached. So the 911 worked, but a lot of other communications were down, and thank God it didn't happen during our storm emergencies. But I'm wondering, is there a backup now in place?
Well, for the dispatch area, what the Frontier did was they switched the incoming calls over to a cell phone as of right now. But as far as backing up, as I said, the lines, as long as there's a number of things, lines coming in, working from Frontier to the town hall and so on. So it's, again, it was part of the network operation that went down. So I guess the backup that is in place is the use of the cell phones as well.
So we will go into the future with the same potential problem.
If part of the system breaks down, yes, but hopefully it won't happen that frequently from the hardline standpoint.
And John, you went over the schedule of the roads, and the roads have been paved to microsurfacing or micro resurfaced. Could you just give a quick overview on how the roads get chosen as far as how they get picked? I think there's a lot of feedback that I know I've received. Someone related to roads that might be in okay condition getting repaired, or a road that's in bad condition. Could you talk a little bit how those roads get selected?
The town engineer will go out, and they'll go out and review and grade out the roads. They might get help from a consulting firm that would grade the roads and then try to set up a replacement schedule based on road conditions, as well as location so that they're done close in proximity as far as reducing the costs. But basically, the engineering department has done a study of all the roads in town and grades them out to determine the shape they're in, and then they'll formulate a repavement schedule based on that study and the location of the roads.
And is it accurate to say that they're trying to save the roads that are savable and the roads that are bad kind of can stay bad longer unless they're close to when it's being worked? Is that kind of our approach?
Well, I think if a road is in bad shape, they would try to replace it as soon as possible. But as I was saying, that I think they try to do it in groups that are near each other and so on. I don't think we would try to keep a road in bad shape for an extended period of time.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Any other questions or comments for the town manager, or we can wrap it up? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Night.
Night, thank you, everyone.
Good
Thank
night.
you
Nice to see everyone.
as well.